There we go. Tar Heel takes secondary break. Graham Bunn, former D1 point guard. Got my brother-in-law, Mr. Zach Talitsky. We're running this one back. You guys will not have seen that we just did this show for about 4 minutes. Having some troubles with StreamYard, but welcome back to the show. Carolina's on a 2-game win streak. These are teams we're supposed to handle, and we did. I'm relieved at that because that hasn't been the case this season. We've mentioned it before, but I'd love to get your initial takeaways. I mean, 2 pretty decisive wins. Definitely the NC State game we rolled. Today there was some lulls, and they dropped it below 10 a few times in the second half. But for the most part, from tip to finish, we led, and I felt like we were in control of the game. What were your initial takeaways, and how are you feeling about the changes with Withers, and are we going to stick with it? Do you think this is enough that could push us over the edge and be competitive in quad one games? Because at the end of the day, all of this is great, and it's nice to be in the win column on a Saturday and enjoy my Sunday and go into the week on a high note. But if it ain't a quad one win, it's not changing our destiny come March.
No. The only game left that on the regular season that matters is the Duke game. The rest of them were really just elimination games.
Yeah.
So this one, and then I think we're at Florida State, home against Miami, at Virginia Tech, and then home against Duke. So those first games really are we just have to win to even stay in the hunt. And of course, the Duke game would be huge. And then maybe if we can advance in the ACC tournament, there's another chance to pick up a quad one win there. But yeah, there's not much in the ACC right now, and our schedule doesn't set up for a bunch of other opportunities. So yeah, I'm glad we're playing better. I'm glad that both of these wins have been sizable, but like you said, it really doesn't matter. It just doesn't hurt us.
Yeah, quick turnaround. That Florida State game is Monday, so obviously a lot of travel. I do believe they're playing Louisville today. I believe that's going to be a loss for them. Louisville has ended up being an incredible turnaround season this year. How do you feel about the changes that have been made in the lineup? Because I'm for it. I think you and I have discussed in brevity that why is this happening so late in the season with a player like Withers, who obviously was on the team last year, has shown his ability to play a stretch four. And honestly, going all the way back to the Kansas game, he was amazing at Kansas. And obviously, Kansas hasn't had the year everyone expected, but neither have we. So, I don't understand from me and from a personal standpoint, what's going on in practice. Is this an anomaly that we're seeing the last couple of games?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't know why we haven't been playing Withers all year. It seems it's obvious that he's our best four-man. He's athletic, switchable on defense, decent from three. He allows Drake to slide down and play his natural position at three, and he's a very good perimeter defender. And so instead of him playing out of position, I think he can thrive a little bit more. It's great that we've seemed to have figured it out. It's not clear to me what's taken so long, especially because it seemed pretty obvious at the beginning of the year that this would be our best lineup. And I know we were trying to get our guards on the floor at the same time, but it was apparent a while ago that wasn't working.
Right.
And so, this switch, I think,
well documented. Large sample size. That's not working.
No, I understand why they tried it.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they stuck with it for so long. So hopefully we ride this and see what happens. If we can win the rest of the regular season games, beating Duke would be awesome. But I don't know if that's going to happen. And then maybe find a way, maybe sneak up into a 4 seed or a 5 seed, which would be an easier path, I think, to get into the ACC final, which is, I think, what we'd have to do. I think if we can win out, lose to Duke, get into the ACC final, then maybe we've got a chance. I think that might put us last 4 in.
I think we're 1 game out of and then above the 7th and 5th spot right now. I think we're 1 game solid in the 6th spot. I do believe, and I haven't looked at SMU's schedule, but I think that we could catch SMU and or Wake Forest. I think they're a half a game of one another above us, and I think we could climb into that. The thing about Withers, which again, hindsight 2020, anytime he plays well, you're like, why hasn't this been happening? Maybe he hasn't been playing well in practice. is that as a guard-oriented team, one of the things that it felt like we were doing is we wanted to get out and run, and we wanted to stretch the floor and get a lot of production from the perimeter because we didn't have necessarily a post presence that was going to give us that. Withers is shooting it as well as anybody from three. I mean, I'm not trying to pile on RJ Davis, but he just has not shot the ball very well. I mean, I think today his numbers again were not great from the field.
0 for 4, 0 for 4 from 3, 3 of 14.
Yeah, and again, I don't know what's going on, but it's been all year with that. And definitely any quad one game, it just has not been efficient. And so if we were sitting Withers because we felt like we were getting more efficient wing play, like that's just not the case. And I hope we never go back. Like one of the biggest things, and you hit on it, is he allows Drake Powell to play his natural position. So let's get guys back in the spot where they're comfortable and can contribute where they can outside of like shifting everybody down and then just losing any game that matters, you know? So I hope we stick with it. I hope we have enough time to build and capitalize on the momentum heading into the Duke game because, like you said, these games that we're getting ready to get into are can't lose games. The Duke game is the only opportunity game to help ourselves. The rest of these games really aren't going to help us. We just have to not lose them, you know? And
yeah,
so
we
that's
have
a
no
terrible
margin
place to
for
be.
error. Yeah, we have no margin for error. So we have to.
And we still need some help.
Yeah.
So hopefully leading into the Duke game, there's enough time to really build on the chemistry of what the rotation looks like now.
I agree. I think this gives us our best chance to make some noise. It addresses, what were some pretty obvious deficiencies, and hopefully Withers can continue to capitalize on these minutes. I mean, he put together was basically like a Harrison Ingram stat line today. Led us in points and rebounds. Only had one turnover, which is nice. It felt like he played within himself. Other than the technical foul, and who knows what he said to the bench, but yeah, I thought he played great today.
I mean, he won not by himself. It's a team game, but he was probably the biggest element in the Syracuse road win too. So, I think Hubert, it's been widely, talked about that Hubert, his system benefits when you have a stretch four that can shoot. Brandy Maddock was, a pivotal piece of that. Harrison Ingram, even though he didn't shoot it incredibly well all the time, when he shot it well from three last year, we won those games. So it's nice to see Withers come along. It's nice to see that they're giving him an opportunity, and hopefully he's here to stay. He can defend multiple positions. He can get out. He's a mobile four, get out and run, spread the floor, finish at the rim, help on the boards. I feel like the upside is just so much greater with him. Even if he has a bad game, I feel like he helps us in other ways that don't show up in the stat sheet, like allowing other players to play in their position. Are you all for the rotation now? Because I love Val starting over Washington. I'm all for Washington. I'd love to see it a 30 to 10 minute split.
Yeah, and that's basically what we had today, I think. Van Leuven had 29 minutes and Jalen had 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm for that. I feel like we know what we get with Leuven. Washington, it's tough. I think Leuven's a better defender, even though Washington's longer.
Yeah, and Leuven's just a little more mobile. Probably still not great switching out on guards, but I do think in terms of just rolling and catching the ball and then being able to make at least one little move, to get to the rim, which is really all we use our post guys for some reason. He's I think better at that than Washington.
Yeah, I would feel differently if we capitalize, and again, it could be the coach staff, it could be Washington himself, on Washington's ability to shoot the ball. It's been highly talked about over the past few years that he's a great shooting big man, and he made a couple threes last year, but he doesn't do that. He doesn't even look at the rim. There's been maybe one or two games where he was aggressive, but we just don't get it. So the upside to me is Leuven all the way, and Washington, even though if he has that skill set, he just doesn't use it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm beyond frustrated with how we're treating the post this year. I mean, there were multiple times today when Jalen was being guarded by what's his name, Day something, Day Ames, their little point guard.
Yeah, the lefty.
And they wouldn't give it to him. I mean, you've got to. I mean, I I know we don't think he can score in the post, but I mean, you're not going to just throw it up to the big guy and let him, go up over a little 6-foot guy. I mean, that you're running offense to get that switch.
Right.
And I get our guards want to dance with their bigs, but every once in a while, like, give the man the ball. And so some of that's on Jalen, but some of that too, I think, is on our guards for not, reading those switches and giving him the ball. But I mean, we have to have some sort of threat in the post if we're going to do anything. I mean, it's just very, very hard to, never be able to initiate offense down low.
Yeah, I mean, they were giving us what we wanted. They were switching everything, and a lot of teams have done that against a better team. Again, NC State and UVA are not; they've not had great years, and it is conference play. These games are tough, and it's always wonderful to win. But when you're playing teams that are going to make March Madness and teams that have quad one resumes, we've just been abused with the whole high pick and roll switch, and we'll see. I mean, even today, countless times I'm watching RJ Davis get the switch on their big, and their big contain him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're not getting much of an advantage from whatever switches they are, because outside of Ian, to an extent, there's not a lot of wiggle into a created shot. Now, Cadeau can do it, but he's got to get to the rim. They literally will play him for the three. Go ahead and shoot the three. Hopefully that changes in the future, but I just feel like he has zero confidence in his jump shot, which I don't have a lot of confidence in his jump shot either.
Well, I noted that again today. It almost seemed like it's back to last year where people are just daring him to shoot from the top of the key.
Yeah.
I think he needs to shoot that. I mean, you've got to keep them honest. I mean, I think he can make 1 out of 3 of those at worst. And that's actually like a decent.
Yeah, he makes 1 out of 3. I'll take it. If he's shooting 33% from 3, we're good.
Yeah, and more than that, if you make 1 or 2, it forces them to actually play you, and opens up the rest of the offense. So I don't know. If I were Hubert, I'd be like, man, you just got to shoot it. I don't care if you shoot 10 of them, but keep shooting it.
Yeah. Can you imagine how good he would be if he was a legitimate threat from the 3-point line?
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like at the beginning of the year he was going to be. Both he and Seth, clearly had put in the work and were shooting the ball with confidence. And just for whatever reason, as the years gone on, I don't know if it's – I mean, we had tough competition at the beginning of the year. It wasn't like we were playing cupcakes out in Maui.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know why confidence is a strange thing in basketball. But, I mean, I was – sort of surprised today, given they were sloughing so much that he wasn't shooting it.
Yeah. I mean, I also love in the last 2 games, I know small sample size, and again, but you can put NC State and Virginia both up against Stanford, which we dropped that home game. The start, it seemed like the team now, maybe they didn't do anything different, but coming out, and it seemed as if the team was locked in, executing, got a great start, and didn't just lollygag around and give the other team confidence of like, okay, we're here, we're in the Dean Dome. There was no kind of like first punch in the face. We can play with these guys and let's see what the game ends up. Like, we got out early. We're getting shot clock violations. We're not, we're forcing contested shots. I felt like the defensive possessions were all very strong in the beginning of the game when I actually got to flip into the game. The game before ran over, so I missed a little bit of the tip. But we have not had strong starts, so maybe it's the change in the roster, the starting lineup, maybe it's Withers being there. Whatever it is, it has been nice to see them get off to better starts, even if it's against lackluster competition.
Yeah, I'll give the team and the coaching staff a lot of credit. They don't seem like they've let go of the rope. I mean, they're still playing hard. They seem to be having fun out there. So I really appreciate that as a fan, because it'd be easy to look up at this time of the season and see yourself in the first 4 out or next 4 in or whatever, and give up. They also don't seem to be playing tight. You could also say, if you're on the bubble, if you could tighten up because you realize, every game is so important. They seem to be playing loose, and was playing as well right now, I guess, as they've played all year. but again, it's hard to tell. Like when you're playing at the bottom of the ACC, these are like quad 3 type teams. I mean, how weird is it to put up 46.5 against Virginia?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Right.
The announcer said it today. They're like, it's a new day, but when you put up 80 plus against UVA, you've usually had just an incredible day. So obviously a very different UVA team now that Tony Bennett's gone, but kudos to the guys and they handled their business. Just an update, maybe this game just ended. I don't know when the tip was, but so Louisville did beat Florida State 89-81. Our game is 7 o'clock your time on the East Coast Monday night. So a little over 48 hours, get down there, get shoot around. I would imagine the guys are going to get on the road tonight and get down there. But I mean, they're 8th in the ACC. They've got an overall record similar to ours. I think they're 16-11 and, maybe a game worse than us, but it's a game we got to have. It's a game we got to have.
Yeah. It's absolutely a game that we have to have. I don't really know much about them this year. I always think of them as being physical and very long.
Yeah.
Which we are not either of those things. So it could be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, but we're getting more lengthy with the roster changes, and hopefully Hubert's dialing in and feeling more confident about, all right, this is going to be the rotation, and we're just going to rock with it. With the pieces, we're not getting any other pieces. We've beaten a dead horse there. We don't need to talk about the roster construction, but with what we have, I feel like he's got no choice but to just roll with this.
Yeah. So Florida State is 85th in the Ken Palm, 141st in offense, and 53rd on defense. So they're not having a great year.
No. I'm trying to look up right now what considered their best win. They did win at Wake Forest, which we did not. It was a 2-point game. They won at Boston College, which we still got to do. That was a 1-point game. Yeah, they beat Pittsburgh at home. That's a good win. So, yeah, it's going to be a game. It's going to be something that we need to show up and we need to put in a good effort. But I think the last 2 games have hopefully given the guys some confidence and we roll in there, feeling good and feeling a little bit more comfortable in the roles that they're playing, and we'll see what happens. But again, it's we've painted ourselves into this hole that it's that game that's not going to help us. It's just like we have to win it. There's no upside to anything they do. Even if they win, it's like, okay, you're supposed to do that. It's not going to help your resume. But if you lose it, you're dead. You're dead in the water.
It's also just strange that the ACC is this bad.
Yeah.
It is a really, really bad conference right now.
Wake had a bad loss today. I think Wake gets beat by NC State, and they were before this game.
That is brutal.
Yeah, before this game, they were in the tournament. They're saying they're first 4 out now.
Oh, so that's an awful loss. NC State's bottom of the league. Oh gosh.
Lost 10 out of 11. Yeah.
Didn't Wake play their way out of the tournament last year? I thought they were in last year, and then they lost like 1 or 2 games down the stretch.
Then they lost the first game of the ACC tournament and played themselves out of it. And then everyone thought Salas was going to leave. He comes back, and then the point guard, I think he transferred to SMU. I think he's down there now.
And Carr's at Kentucky.
Yeah, and Kentucky, that's a huge game today. I'm looking forward to watching that, Kentucky, Alabama. So, yeah, the ACC is down. And, again, the landscape of college basketball conversation show for a different time. That football money's different. So that NLI collective and the budgets these teams have on players, you're seeing most of the talent go to the SEC right now. So, we'll figure it out, and the offseason is going to be probably more eventful than this regular season is, but hopefully we can put together a string of wins and roll into the Duke game with something to prove and like a way to salvage what has been a very painful season as someone who probably is too much of a fan.
And we haven't hired the GM yet, right? I didn't miss that news, I don't think.
No, I've been told that it's done. I've been told that there's a handshake deal with somebody. They're not, it's not like there's an interview process that somebody has filled that position, but it has not been announced, and nor has it been officially, filled at the University of North Carolina as the general manager of the basketball program. But there's a lot of rumors going around that they're not looking anymore, and
It's gotten very quiet.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's obviously a critical hire. Hopefully, even if they haven't announced it, that person is putting together a staff and they're starting to evaluate the landscape, from a
Yeah,
probably
I mean,
less from a recruiting perspective, more from a transfer perspective.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, I think that we're pretty done. There's two top 100 recruits out there, but they're both pretty locked into other schools. One of them being Duke. The rich get richer. But Mitch Kupchak was at the Clemson game. He doesn't attend a lot of North Carolina games, especially a road game. So he was there. It's been curious to see Anton Jameson sitting at the scorers table rather than usually he sits up in the stands and you see him sitting with Roy Williams and in the family section, he's been sitting at the scorers table. So I don't know if that means he's taken on a role on the staff, but there's definitely been some names thrown around and some people showing up in spots you don't normally see them. So I do think that there's going to be additions to the staff or changes to the staff.
Yeah, what I would like to see them do is hire Kupchak, allow him to build an NBA caliber player personnel department, get the thing going. I mean, I don't think he has to, I think he's in his 70s, but so even if he was only in the seat for 2 or 3 years, he could build it. And I'd love to see him have a number two who's a younger guy, even like a Stackhouse, or I don't know if it's Antoine. I don't know who else they'd be thinking, but like an heir apparent that's basically learning
Agreed.
the system from him. So that's what I'd love to see them do. I just think Kupchak knows what he's doing. He's run NBA front offices for a very long time. He knows what NBA talent and athleticism looks like, and I just love to see us give him a chance to build it, assuming he'd be open to it.
Yeah, I'd love to see Anton, George Lynch, or there's one other guy that his name's been floating around as a number two, as like, hey, look, we're just going to get this infrastructure set and we're going to get our system down. I'm going to teach you, these are the things that have really worked well in my career. You obviously, when you take over, it's going to be your wheel to run house, your wheelhouse, but have someone in place, like you said, that we don't have a lull, we don't have a drop off. And if we have to stick in the family, I feel like we have a few candidates. Mitch being the most accomplished in the front office now. I've had this conversation with a few people, and they're like, "Well, he was terrible in Charlotte, and Buzz was his GM in Charlotte." So I don't know.
He really wasn't terrible in Charlotte. I mean, the LaMelo Ball pick. I mean, but everything about LaMelo. I mean, he was probably the right pick at that spot. The Brandon Miller pick was probably the right pick at that spot. He drafted reasonably well. That franchise isn't that great, but
yeah,
I wouldn't look at his tenure in Charlotte and think that would disqualify him from.
Well, I think that's a 4-year run as opposed to like 30 years with all these other dynasties that he was building. So I'm all in on Mitch. Again, there's been some pushback from other Carolina shows, and that's totally fine, and that's why it's fun to talk about. But I hope that that's already been done, and I hope that the evaluation process from top to bottom, and I mean everybody, has already begun. Because I would love to see us, as much as I enjoy beating NC State at home and UVA at home when they're in down years, I'd like to see us better than 1-10 in quad one wins and potentially missing the tournament 2 out of 3 years. Like I need some stability, and I think that comes with infrastructure.
I mean, if we miss, and I hope we find a way to get in, if we miss, are we going to move on from Hubert? Or are we going to give him another year?
I think they give him one more year with a GM in place.
Mm-hmm.
I've also gotten a lot of pushback and people that have watched the show, which, by the way, if you're still watching this, thank you so much, that, I'm okay with moving on from Hubert. There's some downsides to that, but I think even though he is the nicest person on the planet, as a fan, it's just like, man, we haven't been good more than we've been good with him. And it's Carolina basketball. So when you're hoping for 50-50 split of good, bad, I don't know. Like I feel like we haven't adjusted to the new era of college basketball very well. And there's not a lot of resume for Hubert, in my opinion, with like a 10-30 quad one record. It's just something that's really been really bad. And don't quote me on that. That number is probably not as bad as what I'm saying, but we do have a losing record in quad one games, and then missing the tournament 2 out of 3 years potentially. I just think that everybody should be on the table of like, all right, what do you do? How is it beneficial to the team? Are you able to adjust and bring value to whatever this new landscape looks like moving forward?
Yeah.
But I would give him another year. I mean, he's proven he's been able to bring in top tier talent. The Caleb Wilson signing, everyone is raving about this kid. I don't know much about him outside of the highlights. I think there's way more to players besides the highlights. And we've got 2 amazing freshmen this year, but it's not enough to get us over the quad one hump. So you need more than just a couple good recruits to win in this landscape. And so is he the guy? I think it's remained to be seen long term. I don't see them offering him a 20-year contract after this season. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what they're going to do. And I can see the logic in it. And I would love for him to be the guy long term. But
I would too. I don't want to continuously start over and hope
right.
it, and again, I don't, if we're going to stick with the family rule, I don't know if there's a better option.
Yeah,
But
there isn't. Yeah.
It still doesn't table my frustration. And I think he would be totally fine with hearing that. Now, does it lay at his feet? Well, as the coach, you get a lot of, you take the brunt of that, and they pay him a large amount of money to take the brunt of that. Maybe it's not his fault. Maybe he did everything in his power to bring in a 5, and like there were other detracting factors that didn't allow us to lock down or get the Danny Wolf kid. Like that kid's amazing. If he was in a Carolina uniform, I feel like we're bringing home 4 or 5 of these quad one wins that we lost. But I don't know. I hate to say whose fault it is. Bad years happen, but they've been happening a lot to us in the last 6 seasons. I think we've had 3 out of 6 been just brutal. So
yeah,
we'll see. But you would stick with him one more year? You'd give him one more year?
I think I would move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they bring him back, it's got to be well known that he's coaching for his job.
Yeah, I think that'd be obvious. I just think I've seen enough where I feel like there's too many areas that I would just put in the good coaching category where we're not consistently doing it. I don't think we're like finding the right roles for the right people. I don't think we're building a bench. I don't think like there's like a calling card in terms of like what are we known for as a program where year in and year out like you're going to get it. Right. I mean, as long as Samson's at Houston, they're not going to be a bad defensive team, right?
And they're going to be tough as nails.
Right. We're 36th on offense and 63rd on defense in the KenPom. Last year we were a very good defensive team, and I was so excited because we hadn't seen that really before as Carolina fans. But, we just haven't been able to carry it over. So I don't know. I just don't know what our philosophy is. And then it doesn't seem like we've been able to make, the right adjustments this year. So, and you see someone like, Dusty May, go to Michigan and turn it around so quickly, or, what McCaslin's doing at Texas Tech, or
Pope, at Kentucky.
Yeah. Or Otzelberger at Iowa State. I feel like these guys are winning with less resources. It's not all the ACC. I mean, it's not all SEC schools. Like it's one thing you feel like, Alabama or Arkansas or whomever's just like buying a roster. But those guys, I feel like, are able to put together a roster year over year, have a very clear coaching philosophy, and are able to get the guys to execute that, and win with rosters that on paper really aren't that different than ours.
That was my point when people make the the claim, well, we don't have the players to compete in the quad one space. And like, we've got just as good of players as some of these other teams that, are doing it from Creighton, or Marquette. Like we're right up there roster wise. And so it's how are they able to take whatever budget they have with their players and get home, get these quad one wins home, and we're not. So I think there's a lot to be said. We could probably do an entire show, and we probably will do an entire show on the evaluation of the coaching. He might be coaching for his life right now, this stretch. They might be the GM might be in place, and they might be keeping a lid on it because they are evaluating how he handles this stretch, and like, hey, you better find a way to get this Duke game home, because that gets us into the tournament that buys you one more season. If you don't, and we miss the tournament 2 out of 3 years at Carolina, we're willing to risk losing the Wilson recruit just to get a clean sweep. And we'll win in the portal, and we'll bring some grown men in here, and hopefully the talent evaluation will be a little bit better and finding players that are plug and play at this level. I mean, Cade had a decent day today, and he played well at State, but these are blowouts and games that have no meanings, and there's not a lot of pressure on you when you're up 20, up 30. You can shoot a little bit lighter. It's when things get tight and you need to make the shots. And that's been my thing with RJ this year is like, the meaningful shots just haven't been falling this season. And that's been frustrating, but we'll see what it looks like. I mean, this is going to be a pivotal stretch probably for Carolina's the entire basketball program moving forward, because is it going to be Hubert? Is it not going to be Hubert? Is the GM already in place? How is he going to structure it? How is he going to evaluate the process? Will there be a whole new staff? You hire a new coach, you're going to bring in a new staff. So
yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason one way or the other for sure.
Yeah. And probably a little bit more interesting than this season because, again, like the games that matter, it's always gone the same way. We're going to be we're like 1 in 10, I think, in quad one wins right now. If we lose to Duke, it'll be 11. I don't think any team has ever made the NCAA tournament with 11 quad one losses. Only one's ever made it with 10, and we already have 10. So I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting at 44 in Ken Palm. There's 36 at large teams. I mean, that's about kind of where we're projected. So we got work to do.
Yeah, we got some work to do. But we won today, 2-game winning streak, 48 hours, Florida State. Hopefully you and I are back on here at a 3-game winning streak, and go Heels.
Go Heels.